So I saw a clip of this, and I figured I would watch the whole thing because there was an interview about this I thought was really interesting.
The system is rigged, so if you got $1 million, great. If you got 5 million, 10 million, even better.
That's pretty good, yeah.
It's easier.
I would agree. If you have $10 million, life is better than if you don't. That's true. Yep.
It's the way our tax system's set up.
Yeah, we have a very progressive tax system until you get to about the 99th percent. And essentially the people who get most damaged by our current tax code, it's
middle class.
Lower and middle income households, their taxes have gone up slightly because of consumption, but not because of federal. The people that really get hurt are what I call the workhorses. And that are people who make an exceptionally good living, but it's all current income. And they live in a blue state. They might be paying 50 to 54% tax rate. I bet some of those people are around this table right now.
And I think also a lot of those people that are paying that high tax rate, they don't have the money to pay an accounting service to offset it. Like, for example, I'll just say this. I usually have to pay multiple thousands of dollars to have my taxes done. That's because my taxes are probably as thick as one of the books in Lord of the Rings. It's a lot. And so if you have a person do that, it's going to cost a lot of fucking money. And it's not worth it for them. And it's not cost effective. And so they just end up paying more money because they can't get better service because the tax code is so hard to approach from like a... like an average person's perspective.
If you can make the jump to light speed and invest in assets, stocks, housing, then your tax rate plummets. So in America, we've decided to try and create a super class of billionaires. And then if they win,
I think that's what happens is a lot of people do have like, I hear about this all the time. These like landlord guys that have like 100 houses or like, 50 properties. And these people are just farming money. They're just farming fucking money. It's crazy.
Metal, we're going to give them the silver and the bronze. Two biggest tax deductions, capital gains and mortgage interest. Who owns homes and stocks? People my age. Who doesn't know? Who rents and makes their money from current income? Young people. So we've decided that the wealthiest people in the world should get exceptionally more wealthy. Minimum wage stuck at $9.25. Stock market is screamed
up. It's $7.25 here in Texas.
Average 70-year-old is 72% wealthier than they were 40 years ago. The average person under the age of 40 is 24% less wealthy. We are purposely transferring more wealth from the poor and middle class to the upper class to the super rich and from young to old.
And you say in the book, which is true and alarming, but let's say a 30-year-old American in America right now is doing no better than his or her parents. Then that's a new thing in American history that.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about. Yeah.
You would think over time, we want to do better than the next generation, than the last generation. It's not happening anymore.
I think it all ties into what we're talking about on campuses. For the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. That is the social compact breaking down. People aged 30 to 34, 60% of them in 1990 had
that's me.
One child. Now it's 27%. People are opting
60 to 27? Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like about my friends. I would say out of my friends, it's like 60% do have kids. But like if I add in all of my friends that are streamers, it would go down to probably about 40%. Yeah, maybe 30 to 40%. That's not about money though. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons for that.
Out of America, they're not optimistic about it. They're not having kids. Young people aren't having sex. They're not meeting. They're not mating. The pool of emotionally and economically viable men shrinks every day.
It is. Yeah. Guys don't have any fucking money. They can't get a girlfriend. And this is why you're going to, and I don't really think that there's going to be a way to solve this, by the way. I think that the way you solve this is just creating AI girlfriends. I don't think that like there's going to be a way that this gets fixed and things go back to the way they were in 1993. It's just not going to happen. The cat's out of the bag. Sad but true. Yeah, exactly. And I think that also, like, a lot of times, like, guys have, I think that it's also, like, a lot of girls probably would not pursue relationships as early as they do if the culture did not reward that, right? Or like, I guess a better way for me to say it is the culture did not actively punish that. Because now that women have, like, more opportunities to, like, have careers, a lot of them are choosing to have careers. And so in the past, that literally wasn't that much of an option. So like it makes sense.
Lessens household formation. So we have a real issue. Young people are enraged. So it turns every cut, every movement into an opportunistic infection because, quite frankly, they are just pissed off. They look.
What would need to be done to reverse this? What needs to be done, and this is what is going to happen, and it's just a matter of like when, is that they need to have like a universal income. Because what's going to happen is that the reason why a lot of young people have economic problems is because the jobs that young people have to build up skills are not available anymore. Like a lot of those jobs are just simply removed. Like you can't, there's not as many people getting getting hired at Walmart or getting hired at Target or your local grocery store like H-E-B here. Not to mention like fast food restaurants. And you see a lot of jobs that are kind of like that low education, like not necessarily like zero education, but like just general low education jobs are just simply being automated. And as those jobs get automated, there will be people that fix and work on those robots, but that level of education is much higher than the job that the robots were designed to solve. So the problem is that if you're a guy and you're looking to get a job and you are 24, let's say, and you don't have a STEM degree or something like that, and you don't want to work in a trade, you don't really have a lot of options. It's hard to do. Yeah, tech is also fucked. It's barely started recovering. Yeah, and that's what happens. And so, and there will be guys that end up coming out ahead, right? This always happens. Like there are guys now that are 25 that are making $200,000 a year because they are really high performers at their job or for whatever other reason. Maybe their dad owns the company. But there are guys that actually even reach that on their own without any sort of like weird, crazy thing. But it's a very, very low probability. And so the probability of that happening is just extremely fucking low. And also, like, the guys that are doing that are 1% guys. Like, these are guys that are smarter than probably like 95 or 99% of everybody else. So, and like, I'm not the kind of person, like, I don't think that intelligence is, I think it's changeable to a degree, but it's not completely changeable. I've played WoW long enough to know that there are some people that you will just never really be able to teach them to get out of the fire. Like you can teach them how to get out of this fire, but they will go to the next fight and then they'll stand in the next fire. And they're just stupid, right? That's it. And you can make them a little bit less stupid, but they're still going to be less stupid. And that's the problem. And so in the past, these people had jobs that were, you know, relatively low education, low thinking jobs. But now that doesn't happen. And more jobs are requiring critical thinking. And whenever you have critical thinking being a requirement, well, that's a problem because a lot of people can't do that. I think you can still achieve that without being smarter than 99%. Okay. If you can achieve that without being smarter than 99%, then you probably have something else that puts you in the 1%. And you probably have a confluence of things that put you in the 1%. You could be very attractive. You could come from a richer area. You could be very good at communicating, for example. Like, just because you're not in the 1% of intelligence does not mean that you're not in the 1% of 3 other things as well. Do you see what I'm saying? Born to the right parents. Yeah, like, for example, like for me, both of my parents were master's degree college graduates. My dad did work on a PhD. He left, he became a professor in college. He was an executive at a publishing company. Then he retired, worked at the IRS. My mom was a writer, and she did that for many, many years, and professionally. And so, like, guess what? Growing up, I had a massive advantage over people who, let's say you're a, you're like first generation Mexican, right? Like your parents came from Mexico. They don't really speak English very well. I have an automatic advantage over that person because I grew up in a house where my parents talked to me a lot in English and I learned how to speak in a proper way. That's just the truth. And it's not something that has to do with like the color of my skin. Like there's black people that had the same advantage that I did in that circumstance. But the truth is that is still a massive fucking advantage. And there's all kinds of little advantages like that. Like, for example, being tall is a huge fucking advantage. Being attractive is an insane fucking advantage. There's even a term for it. It's called the halo effect. So you have all, and also like health as well. Like I've noticed that, like, for example, whenever I was younger, For me, I've always been very, I know you might not believe this, but I used to always be very athletic. And it was always amazing for me to see people that would drop out whenever we would like run a mile and they couldn't even do one lap. It's like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? No, it's cap. No, it's not. Yeah, it's extremely common. So I think what happens, we play a video. Yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent. But the point that I'm making is that basically in order to be a winner, like let's say in the past, you had to be in the top 80%. Now you have to be in the top 30% or 20% or 40%. So whenever that many people are getting left out and they're losers, that's a huge problem.
They see wealth, exceptional wealth across my generation and people in certain industries, and they are really struggling. Their purchasing power is going down, and the incumbents create artificial scarcity on campus. We take pride in rejecting 90% of our applicants. So the incumbents who already have a degree see their degree go up in value. We get very concerned with housing and traffic once we own the housing. Housing permits are sequestered from young people. Housing prices have gone from $290 to $420 in the last 4 years. So a young person,
$290 to $420. Oh wow, that's a lot.
A house, stocks that I don't own skyrocket in value. Let's have COVID relief and flush the markets and take assets way up, because if 1 million people dying would be bad, it would be tragic if I got less wealthy. And we're doing it on their credit card. Young people have every reason to be enraged, and every issue they see, they look up, they get angry, and they see someone doing better than them, and then every day it is speedballed in their face.
It's not going to stop either. It's going to keep getting worse every single year. And the reason why it's going to keep getting worse is because people are trained to hate each other rather than hate the people that put them in the situation that they're in. Because a lot of the people that are being taken advantage of and fucked over, I'll be honest, they're stupid. That's why they can't get a job and they can't compete at that high level. So guess what? All of those people, it's really easy to hoodwink them into thinking that the real problem is incels, or the real problem is feminism or something like that. Because it's an easier, like the thing is that like identity politics, that's the real reason why you're a failure in life is because of identity politics. Well, that's a really easy sell to somebody with an IQ of 91.
That they are failing, that they are not doing as well as everyone around them. We have lost the script. Our kids are more anxious and more depressed and more obese and more addicted. And we have made a purposeful decision to let this happen.
This is the part that I saw.
By ensuring the people around this table stay wealthy at the cost of young people.
So Scott, what the social element of that, that's the economic element, the social elements that you mentioned, the happiness, the anxiety, all of those things, that kids aren't getting together anymore, that they're not having kids. What happened in one generation? Social media has to play a role in it, I'm sure. But what else do you see that has created this climate for this generation?
Okay.
I think you have the most talented, well-resourced people in the world and companies trying to convince a young man that he can have a reasonable facsimile of life in his basement behind a screen. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need to get...
Was he talking about me? Wait, what? What's this shit? Who the fuck?
A job, go on Robinhood or Coinbase and trade crypto and stocks. You don't need to go through the rejection.
Yeah, that's another thing, is that I think that this is definitely true, and I know this is true for myself. As I said, I don't like revealing my power level for like kind of a little bit how crazy I am. But I used to dig my fingernails into my skin and tear my skin out as just a reminder to myself that I could do whatever I wanted. That's right. I have scars on my back from it. Yep. I did it on my arms too. But all that's pretty much healed out. And so, yeah. And so I'm a bit of a weirdo, but the truth is that a lot of people, they feel like they don't have any real autonomy. They can't control themselves. And I think that for me, there were a lot of cases in my life where I think that, for example, like I got a lot stronger dealing with something that was like extremely, like really, really bad. Like, for example, like whenever all my teeth started falling out, I was such a bitch before that. I was. I was a total bitch. And like after that happened to me, that really, like, it fucked me up a lot, but I was a lot more fucking resilient. Tooth pain is no joke. Yeah, exactly. You go fucking tell the truth. The profession is fun. Yeah, it's life-changing. It is. And the same thing happened, like, with my mom. Like, after she passed away, I think about, like, because I'll watch videos of myself before then, and I think about, like, how, like, emotionally weak I was. I was incredibly weak. And, like, having to deal with that and the stress and pressure of that was just so bad that it like, and this is the thing, this is the problem, is that, like, it definitely changed who I was as a person in a good and a bad way. And I think that there are a lot of other instances that I've had this happen in my life too, where, like, now I think that I am more, did you hate yourself at the time? Yeah, of course. I wanted to kill myself. Of course, yeah, sure. But I didn't do it. I was a pussy, right? I mean, let's be honest. So yeah. And so that's what happened. And I think that a lot of guys nowadays, they don't have to go through a lot of those things in a lot of cases. Like a lot of social friction. I think that's a good example of it. And I'm using, like, extreme examples from my life, but there's a lot of, like, very, very low examples, like getting kicked out of a friend group, having people dislike you, getting turned down by a girl, something like that. And a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do that. And guess what? If you spend so much time not doing that, you're going to be in a bad spot. Suicide's getting higher? Yeah. Imagine you did. You miss out on being an incredibly successful businessman, all on a cool dude. I don't really ever think about that stuff. I don't, guys, I just, listen, there's a reason why I don't really talk about how I feel with a lot of things. It doesn't matter. The point is that this guy is right that being on social media and spending all the time on the internet does, I think, make people a lot weaker.
And the expense and the humiliation,
like mentally,
and working out and having a plan and humor and showering to get a romantic relationship, you have you porn. So we have an entire generation, especially of young men, who are out home sequestering from society and missing out on what it means. You know, there's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. True victory in life is
That's a good one. That's a really good one. And I bet they did the other. I don't even know if they got that. He just said it? Yeah, bro. He said this on fucking national TV. Weird tangent? Yeah, that was perfect. Oh my God. Did you brought up rom-coms? Yeah, it's perfect. Holy shit, that was good.
You know, there's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. True victory in life is hard. Going out, meeting someone, finding mentors, finding mates, that stuff is hard.
Well, also, like, a lot of guys aren't going to be able to do that. There's some people that are just born losers, and they're never going to be successful in a free market because other people will beat them out because they're weak. And that's just what happens. And so you either have to reconcile that and just make sure that these people, like, and this is just what natural selection. Yeah, that's just what happens. And I'm not being mean. I think it's just the truth. Yeah, damn, you just got right to it. Yeah, well, as I said, I love saying the thing that's true in the worst possible way to make everybody think it's not true, right? And so I think did I do a good job with that? Hopefully I did. Yeah, some people are born losers. They're never going to be competitive. They're never going to win anything. It doesn't matter how hard they try. Somebody else will always outperform them. And these are people that used to work at McDonald's. These are people who used to work on an assembly line, turning the nut. There you go. Because guess what? If you put them in a critical thinking situation, whoever is accountable for that is going to be having a bad time. I wouldn't call some people weak. Well, I'm not talking about mentally weak. I'm talking about physically weak. Like, they're shorter. They're smaller. They can't do certain things. Think about it as in terms of like in any animal, in any group of animals, a lot of the animals die. In almost every single instance, a lot of them fucking die. Do you really think that that's not the case with people? It's the case with every single group of animals, but not people? Of course it is. Some people are just born losers. Some people spawn in with 60 talents, and some people spawn in with 0. And that's the way it goes. I don't think this is a problem that's possible to solve, because you can't empower a person like that. It will never work.
But that's what real victory in real life is like. And because a lot of men feel rejected on dating apps, the number of jobs that are accessible to them has gone down. You have essentially a group of men who are saying, I want a low-risk entry into life. And they go down a rabbit hole. When they don't have social connections, and they don't get out, and they don't have the prospect of a romantic relationship, they're more prone to conspiracy theory. They're more prone to misogynistic content. They're less likely.
Well, of course they're prone to conspiracy theory, because it's a conspiracy. It is a conspiracy why they're fucking failures. The fucking government cooked it up. The society, they're right.
Believe in climate change, and some they become really bad citizens. We are producing too many of the most dangerous person in the world, and that is a young, broke, and lonely young man.
Yeah, true.
Why is it that so many...
every single school shooter basically is that. Now, there's a few exceptions, but it's a big deal whenever one of them is an exception, right? Yeah, most of the time, a lot of the guys that go on shooting rampages are under 25, guys that are losers or loners.
Of these young people that you're talking about seem to...
And I also don't think it's because of guns. I really don't. I think guns are a factor, but people had guns in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and shit like that wasn't happening. Like, a lot of people brought that. Like, my dad even told me, he was like, yeah, people would bring their gun to school. They'd leave their shotgun in the car. They'd drive to fucking high school, and they'd leave the shotgun in the car. Not a single one of them took the shotgun in and started shooting a bunch of kids. So what's the difference? I don't even think it's drugs. I actually don't think it's drugs. I think it is, to be honest, I think some of these people are like mental cases and they should have been institutionalized. But because we can't institutionalize people anymore, they're out free. And some of them shoot up schools. And I think also it's the death of hope. These people have no hope for the future. They don't think that anything is ever going to get better. So they go and kill a bunch of people and then kill themselves. That's it.
Into life after going to 4-year schools or 2-year schools or whatever, head into life with a lack of...
Sorry, I hate pausing it like this because I brought up, there's a good comment here. Somebody says gun education isn't taught anymore. Back then, people were taught the importance. No. Back then, people were taught the importance of life because religion played such a massive role in society, and it no longer exists. Religion has been replaced with political dogma. That's the reason. Almost every single one of these people also are not very religious. Religion isn't necessary? I think it is. I think Karl Marx was right. Religion is the opiate of the people. I think it's true. I do. Again, keep in mind, I have the worst possible view of humanity that you can have. So, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think.
Financial literacy. They don't know anything about money or the growth of money. All they know is the absence of money.
Yep. I think we need to have, in our curriculums in high school, a class on adulting. My kid, I say to my house, my kid can do integers and basic calculus, but he doesn't understand the interest on his credit card.
That's bad. That's really bad. How? I don't know how. That's crazy bad. Yeah, kids won't listen anyway. Well, here's another problem, is that because parents don't have a lot of money, how many of you guys learned how to budget money really well because your parents gave you an allowance? And like, for example, I would get like 20, 30 bucks a week. And then I had to spend some of that on school. Like I had to buy school lunch with that money. And then anything I had left over was my money that I could spend the way that I wanted. And that teaches kids how to spend money and how to allocate money per week. Yeah, a week. $30 a week, you're rich. Yeah, I forgot if it was like $20 or $30. My mom might have upped it to 30. I really don't remember. I didn't get shit. Yeah, but for a lot of you guys that did, do you think that getting an allowance and being able to budget out that money in the way that you chose to helped you better, like, with financial matters? Because for me, I feel like it was very helpful. That's not what he's talking about? No, he is. Because, like, you understand, like, people don't understand the importance of money who don't have the ability to use it a lot. The problem is that kids make bad mistakes with money in a space that's safe. Like, you can make a stupid mistake with money at age 11, at age 14. But whenever you make a stupid mistake with money at age 19 and you take out a 21% interest loan on a Dodge Challenger and you don't have a job, well, that's a really big mistake. That's way bigger mistake than buying the wrong video game at GameStop. And so at a certain point, having kids, it's kind of like a, like natural immunity or something like that, building up a tolerance to it. So if kids aren't able to make mistakes as kids, then they're going to make those mistakes as adults instead.
So there's just some basic kind of financial literacy that we're not teaching. And when you start replacing civics with computer science, you lose a sense of the country and you start learning about programming. And when you don't talk about basic financial literacy or even mating, I would like to see in the senior year of college mating dynamics and help men understand and women what is unique to them and their vulnerabilities to social media. I was talking about the challenges of men from social media. At exactly the wrong time in a young girl's life, she is presented with a valuation where she never gets to leave the high school cafeteria 24/7. And as my colleague Jonathan Haidt has pointed out, we've seen a dramatic uptick in suicide. But I think effectively we just don't have basic skills for young people. We're teaching them advanced things, but we're not teaching them the basics around what a mortgage.
Yeah, I completely agree. Kids don't need to learn Algebra 2. It's a waste of time. Nobody cares. They don't need to learn about English literature in senior year. They should definitely learn. And it's not that this stuff doesn't matter at all. It's that other things matter more. And if you have a limited amount of time, it is a bad decision to put this above the other thing. Like, Algebra 2 is very important, but it's not more important than financial accounting. Now change time. Well, I mean, maybe it's not something like that, right? But more about taxes and living costs. Yeah, exactly. Why is math always to blame? Because most people don't use math. Realistically, you're probably like, I'll tell you, how many times have I needed to calculate the hypotenuse of a square like this? Like, calculate the long one. I'll tell you the amount of times. 0. 0 times. I never had to do it. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I remember how to do it. But a lot of people probably don't. And so if you're teaching people something that 95% of them, 90% of them, 80% of them are never going to use, why are you teaching this to them? Because it goes against fundamentally the way that people learn. People learn and retain information by regularly going back to that information. Like, how many of you guys, for example, had a locker in school and you forgot the password on your locker between, like, semesters or between summer break and the next year? Because you're not using it. So if you teach people skills that they're not going to use, they're just going to forget the skills, and it'll be as like you never taught them at all. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's just not the way learning works. Always use the same password? Yeah, password 1. There you go.
what interest rates mean. So I think we could use just a basic class on adulting, junior or senior year.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how
that guy's totally
right. You
right.
tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC.
Oh, boy.
You click on the MSNBC app.
You click on video.
Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.
Give it a like. That was a good video. Yeah, I mean, I would say this guy is based as fuck. Like, it's actually crazy. One of the things that I really like with guys like this is because they say it in such a matter-of-fact way, and it's like people like this have a really good ability to cut through the bullshit. You know, like the romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. That's a good point. That's a really, really good point. And it's just raw. Hypotenuse is long side of the triangle. It doesn't matter, though. That's the point that I'm making. Is that, like, I got a 99 in geometry. I understood that extremely, extremely well. But a lot of it I've probably forgotten by now because I don't use the information. That's the reason why. And that's what happens with anything, liar. No, I actually did. Like, is it really that hard to imagine? Yeah. And so, and you're limited because of it? No, I'm not. And that's the point that I'm making, is that whenever you teach kids to learn something that they won't use, you're effectively wasting their time. That's the reason why. You're wasting their time. And I think also, like, these things are they're good to know. It's not like it's bad to know this, but again, you live in a world of scarcity. Everything in life is scarce. It's not like you can just have, we'll just teach everybody everything. You don't have time for that. So you have to decide, what are you going to teach people? Is it more important to teach them Pythagorean theorem or how interest rates work? In my opinion, I think interest rates went out 10x, 100x more. So it's not that Pythagorean theorem doesn't matter. It's that other things matter more. Why can't we have both? Because you only have so much time. That's why. So you only have so much time that you have kids in school for. That's the reason. It's very simple. Yeah, they can only do so many classes. They're only going to learn so many things. And that's it. Math is teaching kids how to think. Yeah, but why wouldn't it be better to teach kids how to think in ways that are more practical to their real life? That's the worst argument I've ever heard. Like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Math should teach kids how to live. Yeah, exactly. It's about brain development. Okay, so you're telling me that, like, brain development only happens whenever you learn Pythagorean theorem, but if you learn accounting, they can't develop their brain? That's the most dumb fuck thing I've ever heard. No, that's not the way it works. Dumb fucking thing. It's so fucking stupid. Where do these chatters come from? I don't know. Yeah. I'm actually confused on something here. Did you guys not get algebraic functions and interest rates in grade 8 math? I mean, like, back in the day, I like, as I said, like, I grew up, like, my dad was into business, and so, like, I knew all of this stuff. This was never an issue for me. But I know a lot of my friends don't know it. How do I know they don't know it? Because I've seen their credit card bills. Yeah, that's how I know. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of a cell. Yeah, biology doesn't matter. Periodic table, this stuff, complete bullshit. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be relevant to like 90%, 80% of people's lives. Yeah, focus on something else. And again, like, I'm not saying that you should not do it, but you shouldn't make it required. You shouldn't do it instead of something else. I had this argument with a friend who has a PhD in physics. He told me that anything he learned was useless, but the exercises learn him to resolve the problems. I think that you're right. And I actually like the idea of math as a foundation of logic, and I think that's extremely true. But I also don't think that's the way that most people think. The truth is that most people are really not logical thinkers, and they never will be. How do I know that? Because I read Twitter. You're not going to teach somebody to think like that. Which is not what's going to happen. It's better to teach them how to do accounting, and that way they can not fuck up their life. Biology matters in terms of not being a moron with ridiculous beliefs, making social decisions based on their misunderstanding of biology. Okay, let me immediately prove you wrong. Biology is a required course in America, and half of the country thought COVID was fake. It didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work. So they think global warming is fake. There's no climate change. The earth is flat. I'm sorry. I wish more people would... If you guys are going to type an argument into chat, please think about what somebody would say to your argument. At least think one step ahead. That's all I'm asking. And then if you think one step ahead of that argument, and then you think and then you're like, oh, wait a second. This is a bad idea. Okay, never mind. Chess playing checkers, not chess? Yeah. Try to play a little bit more chess and less checkers. Exactly.